I'd just like to say, first of all, thank you to everyone who's organised the symposium, and this technology has been working amazingly, so thank you. And personally, it's been great to have been online today rather than in person, but I'll come back to that at the end of the talk. So my name's Lynn, and the research in this abstract has been primarily led by Lisa Thomas and Emily Winter. We're all at Lancaster University up in the northwest of England. This short paper is a result of a survey of female sixth form students in our region who were studying CS A-level. The surveys took place in the summer term last year, so 2019. Move on. So the structure of the presentation will follow the structure that was in the abstract, so looking at background, method, findings, and then conclusion. The background, I'll quickly cover some of the statistics regarding female participation at various stages of CS education and in the tech workforce, and then look at some of the impacts of this. So to start with, these statistics are probably very well known to many of us. So females make up 21.4% of GCSE students, 13.3% of A-level students, 17.2% of undergraduate students, and 17% of the tech workforce. So there are impacts of this underrepresentation, including some that have received quite a lot of mainstream attention recently, such as legal and ethical concerns regarding gender and social biases in AI and machine learning algorithms. And there's also direct issues on women who are entering CS education and the tech workforce through persisting stereotypes of computer science as masculine discipline that may put off otherwise interested and highly competent women. So for the methods, I'll cover here an issue that we had to delete from our abstract due to word limits, and that was our selection of schools, specifically which schools offer A-level CS in Lancashire, and how many females could we expect to complete our survey. And then I'll share some elements of our questionnaire. So to get an idea of how many schools or colleges in our region actually offered CS A-level, we turned to the data that's contained in the Roehampton Annual Computing Report. This meant using the 2018 public report that had the full data set in it, rather than the shorter public 2019 report. So on the screen, I've edited table 15 of the report to just show Lancashire, and that showed that we could expect 17 providers offering A-level CS in Lancashire and 195 students. That's based on the 2017 exam sittings data set that the Roehampton report used. So that's 195 students in our region doing CS A-level. So we wanted an indication of how many females there might be from that. So using a different table in the report, it suggested that we could find 66.3% of providers to have no female students doing A-level. In terms of the surveys that we sent out to teachers, we got 4 responses back quite quickly to say that they had no females doing A-level CS. So although that surprised us, the data indicated that more providers would be in that position, potentially up to 11 of the 17 providers having no A-levels. But maybe that was those who didn't reply. So we ended up with replies from 6 providers, which is in line with the data indications. In terms of how many females we might get, we were completely out of line with the data. We received 56 surveys from females when we thought that by using the national averages, we might only get about 26. So quite a surprise, a positive number of replies that we got. Possible explanations are that the data set was old and our data was collected in summer 2019. The small diagram that I've shown on the right-hand side shows the red colours as being particularly high uptake of A-level computer science. And so Lancashire is in that top left, Lancashire and Cumbria are in the top left, and it shows that we've got a higher than average uptake of A-level. And a final factor was that the data I showed earlier was actually from mixed schools, so male than female in school, whereas we have a girls' school in the response set, which would positively skew our number of responses. So moving on to our questionnaire, we developed a very visual-based, paper-based questionnaire, and we delivered this either in person to our local schools or through the mail to the teachers that we'd made contact with. There were 8 sets of questions. For example, on the slide here, you'll see an initial question on what aspects of your future career are important to you. Options ranged from improving people's lives to receiving a high salary, and from creative designing to working as a team. For the paper abstract, we focused on responses to questions on projects and on future studying intentions and on opinions to gender disparity in computer science. The slide here shows a question on projects, seeking open responses from students and identifying different positive and negative aspects of projects that they'd experienced. As a final example of our questionnaire, just wanted to show that intentionally we had a lot of space for open responses, such as this one here, which is intentions for studying CS at university, and also for feelings about the gender disparity in computer science education. So a quick slide on the mechanics, the practicalities of the survey. There's a summary here, but all these details are contained in the abstract. In terms of our analysis, we typed up all the data that we got back and then used thematic analysis on the data set. So the important bit, the findings. In the abstract, we focus on a slice of the questions that give insights into projects, into future studying intentions, and on feelings regarding to gender disparity. From that, we got 3 main findings: a strong sense of social purpose, a rather fragile sense of belonging, and lots of hedging of answers. Hedging isn't something that I was familiar with before. It's certainly not something that we were expecting in the answers, and it's something that Emily spotted in the data and commented that once she'd spotted it, it was amazing how prevalent it was. If you haven't come across hedging before, in our case, it manifested most typically as a negative feeling that had an extra diminishing clause added to it. So for example, responses might say, I'm a bit intimidated about what it would be like being in such a minority group, but I make friends easily, so I'm sure I'll be okay. So something negative followed by something that was diminishing the impact of that. So first of all, our early question on important aspects for your career is where we first started to see evidence of a sense of social purpose. Based on weighted calculation of responses, we saw that students favoured developing technical skills in their careers, followed by 2 aspects that linked to a sense of social purpose, namely improving people's lives and improving society. We saw that, surprisingly maybe, creative designing didn't get that many likes, and working alone, not unsurprisingly, didn't get many likes. Regarding the projects, lots of interesting real-world projects were cited, including the general principles of liking projects that made a difference and that involve real-world users and realistic situations. Specific projects included lots of medically related systems and lots of locally relevant businesses and charities. In terms of negative experiences, the results were really diverse, but a few responses cited not liking abstract or theoretical concepts, encountering bugs and bug fixing and the negative effect this had on confidence, also finding object orientation confusing, and not liking App Inventor. The students didn't find it intuitive and it having, and I quote, many issues. A few open responses like I've shown on this slide in yellow, and these are direct quotes, showed some students seeing a disconnect between computer science as a subject and a sense of purpose. Or more specifically, they hinted at a perception for these students of CS as not being associated with a sense of social purpose. So the second one, I want to impact on people's lives, social action, and I don't think this can be done with CS. And if it can, I haven't been educated how to. A second result from our thematic analysis of the data regarded a sense of belonging. In the literature, such as the 2 publications I've referenced here, and the full references for these are in the abstract, a sense of belonging has been found to be an important predictor of success and retention in computer science. Negative stereotypes were actually behind this second quote that I've listed here. To give you the full version of the quote, this student said, "I thought I wanted to do CS until I studied it at A-level. I know this is a generalisation, but I associate certain stereotypes with computer scientists. And I've found that many students I've spoken to who are or are planning to take it at uni are very similar, and I don't feel as if I would fit in." So unfortunately, these quotes hinted at no sense of belonging in computer science. We also explicitly asked for feelings on the gender disparity in computer science. Several students expressed surprise that they were the only female who had chosen to do A-level computer science at their school or college. And interestingly, but I found very sadly, a large number of negative feelings were used in the open responses. Things like intimidated, uncomfortable, worried, and so on. And again, these were not words that we'd naturally associate with a sense of belonging. A small number of responses saw the silver lining that it might be an advantage to be in such a minority group, in being unique, and that I like this one, that they would be pioneers, that they would pave the way for decreasing the gender gap. We also saw some responses demonstrating significant determination and resilience, but we also saw a small number of examples identifying a perceived difference in treatment between males and females. So a few people commented on having to work harder or getting treated differently, and having to earn respect in a way that male peers do not. Again, the examples are on the slide. So the final finding was hedging, and this, as I mentioned earlier, this was something that we hadn't expected in our results. As I mentioned earlier, this is a negative feeling, but with a diminishing clause added to it, and at least 20 of the 56 surveys demonstrated this linguistic device really clearly. So comments such as uncomfortable but would get used to it, uncomfortable but wouldn't worry too much, uncomfortable but would not mind, uncomfortable but would still do it if I wanted to, and so on. So very clear examples of hedging in their answers. So this was something that we hadn't come up with before, and hedging is this linguistic device that's been found to be much more common in the way that women speak and present themselves. However, I should say that we only surveyed female students, so we can't comment on the relative use of this device between male and females. And we should also note that these were responses to specific questions on gender disparity. And so these are comments on being in a minority group, which probably makes hedging more likely in that context. If you want to know more about this really interesting phenomena, Brona Murphy dedicates a chapter 4 of this book that I've shown here, on many different forms of hedging and studies that have been done in this area. So our conclusions. Our survey was of students who are already doing CS at A-level. And so as a result, they had already developed a level of resilience and a way of being in this minority discipline. The data showed a clear sense of purpose, a sense of social purpose, specifically in the projects that they like doing. But it also showed a very fragile sense of belonging as part of this discipline. And finally, as I've just shared, lots of hedging, including a self-responsibility to adapt. So people felt that it was their responsibility to adapt, to fit in and succeed. And I think that provides a challenge to us all, in that it is our responsibility at department institutional level to adapt and to as we've already heard in the previous talk, to come up with ideas that make this sense of belonging more prevalent for minority groups in computer science. So I said at the start I was particularly grateful today to be actually able to work from home and to join this conference online. The reason is that these beautiful little girls were born this morning. They're 2 little Shetland lambs, and it was great to be able to witness their birth at around 7 o'clock this morning. So I'm happy to answer any questions either on sheep or on what I've just presented.